Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you an OP land druid build guide in Baldur's Gate 3. This can be great for Jaheira, so we're going to be going with obviously druid here. Now this build is a little bit different than some of the other builds for the druid. The druid spends a lot of his time in its wild shape, but the land druid is more of a caster, which I'm going to get into and why it can be really powerful in Baldur's Gate 3. Now for our cantrips we're going to choose Shillelagh, which is kind of a funny name, and the Thorn Whip there. Those are two kind of the druid exclusive cantrips that we're going to be going with. Now, as far as stats go, this is where things get kind of interesting. So, wisdom obviously being our main stat, we want that at 17. Dexterity is going to be a big focus of this, though, as we're going to be making some choices that allow us to live a little bit longer and deal a lot of damage. So, ideally, we can get that up high, as well as our constitution too, as we want to be able to live through a lot of these attacks. So strength we can pretty much just dump, because when it gets down to it, we're going to be either using potions for strength later on, but somewheres like that you can dump charisma or go full strength there. We want to have our dexterity as high as possible, so we want to have even numbers. 16 gives us a nice +3 to our dexterity checks, and you're going to see why this is important in a bit. But as far as our skills go, that's likely what we're going to be choosing. Now, we get light armor and medium armor in this, so we're going to be getting quite powerful. You can see the chainmail that I got, or medium armor I got on there. So, getting into things, we get to choose at level 2 which subclass that we're going to be going with. This is where the druid starts to branch out in 3 different ways. So the Circlet of the Land is more so caster, as I mentioned. The Circlet of the Moon gives you more so focus on your wild shape, and then the Spore Druid is kind of it's a hybrid kind of crowd control like class, but the Circle of the Land is also a crowd control damage class. Now, I'm going to be doing a build later on the Circle of the Moon, but we get to choose a cantrip here. Guidance is not a bad one to have, but that will require concentration. In terms of our spells, I like to have Entangle there, giving you an option of crowd control that's exclusive to the Druid. Goodberry can be decent, giving you some health, and it can also help with creating a long rest if you need some supplies for that, so not the worst thing to take. Thunderwave's nice to have some pushback. Speak with animals. If you're going to be the face of your party, it's great to have that. But also, if you don't have it on someone else already, it's nice that you can get some healing spells too. As a druid, it's kind of like the jack of all trades as far as things go. The bard is really the true jack of all trades, but that's roughly what our level 2 is going to look like. And as we get our feats, at full level 12, we get 3 feats as the druid, so very nice, and we're going to go into why that can be useful here. So, the first Circle of the Land, so this is where we get a lot of our spells from. So, there's a few great options here. Personally, I like to have the Underdark, because you get the Misty Step here, as well as Web, which can be really great. You can set up a web, and then also it's flammable, so you can deal lots of damage that way. If you prefer Mirror Image, then go with the Coast, but I think that the Underdark is kind of the better one. Misty Step's just really great to have. Using a bonus action, you can just teleport wherever you want that you can see. This is really great, so I would recommend going with that. And then for our spells, we get our level 2 spells. I like Heat Metal. Heat Metal can be a pretty good spell to have overall. Spike Growth can be pretty decent too. So we're going to probably take off that, put on Spike Growth. You have Bark Skin. Moonbeam can be quite powerful too. So it just comes down to what you think you need in terms of your spell slot selection. It doesn't matter too much at low levels, but we're going to be getting some really powerful spells here soon. So at Druid level 4, this is where we get our first feat. So for our cantrip, resistance, or poison spray, doesn't matter a whole lot. Cantrips aren't going to be the main damage dealing choice that we got. Dark Vision can be pretty nice, but it does take an action to use. You can use it outside of combat. It can be pretty nice to have Dark Vision, but in terms of our feat, our first feat is going to be bumping up our wisdom or dexterity. Now, this is kind of your choosing, but wisdom, we don't usually want to leave it on an odd number like we have been, but this is provided you didn't use the Hag's Hair. The Hag's Hair can push this up to 20, and then the Mirror of Loss can push this up to 22. That's kind of the goal. We want to get this up to 22, so Mirror of Loss is in Act 3. Then you can dump your intelligence further or dump your charisma. It doesn't really matter. It's your choice. But the other feats that we're going to be using are going to kind of round this build out. So that's what we're going to be going with for that there. The Druid does get some nice clothing options that are light armor and clothing based, but we're going with medium armor here, and I'll get into that why in a little bit. So for our second Circle of the Land, this is where we actually get some really nice utility. So I like Haste a lot personally. Haste is really great for just overall just blasting people. Like what Haste does is it gives you an extra action. So this is like action surge that lasts for 10 turns. Very nice. You become faster and gain a +2 to armor class. This is pretty much a no-brainer. We always want to have this prepared and on. And you also get Sleet Storm if you choose the Arctic Circle of the Land. So I think that this one is best at level 5. So Sleet Storm's great. Calls forth a storm that disrupts the concentration of spellcasters, douses fires, and creates a nice surface. So if you know that there's a mage that has a concentration that you want to get rid of, boom, gone. And then you also have Ice Surface, which you can then set up a fireball with like a sorcerer or a wizard. And then you got Create Water, so you can do ice damage again, deal double damage. Very nice utility there. But a lot of people kind of don't care too much about Sleet Storm since it's not an attack, but lots of utility there. And we're going to get a little bit further into that here. So for our level 3s, Plant Growth is okay. I don't love to use Plant Growth. Call Lightning can be kind of nice. And you can recast it without using a spell slot. Protection from energy can be decent, giving you resistance to acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage. And this is another concentration, but Plant Growth is okay. It's not really the best, but we're going to leave it there for now. We can always change these out anytime. You can just go into your spell slots and change these out too, by the way. So as we get to level 6, this is where things get a little bit deeper. So we get Landstride. We don't get bothered by difficult terrain. That's really nice. Later in the game, there's some areas that really bother me with that. Then we get Wild Shape Panther, which is nice for stealth if you want to go stealth, like with a rogue or ranger. And you also get the Owl Bear from the top ring. You can use Owl Bear and come flying down, dealing crazy amounts of damage. But typically we're going to be focusing on spellcasting, and this is the Druid is the best tank in the game. And the reason for that is you have like multiple casts of your Wild Shape, and this just keeps giving you more and more health, which is really great. So you can be tanky, but our main focus with this build is just spellcasting damage and then having that as our kind of backup to stay alive. So +3 initiative, yeah. We're just going to take protection from energy there just to kind of round things out there. But the spells that the Druid gets is a little bit more interesting than some of the other classes I find. We're going full 12 levels of Druid, although there are some really great Druid multi-class guides or multi-classes that I will be getting into at later guides. A personal favorite of mine is the Barbarian, which is a Barbarian plus the Bear Moon form. And as we get to the Circle of the Land here, we also get 2 really great options. So we're not going to take this one with the Conjure Minor Elemental. We get one later on that gives us a regular Elemental, which is very powerful. We want to have that at all times. Confusion can be pretty nice to take. We got crowd control here with Wall of Fire and Blight. Plants will take maximum damage from that. I like to wait until the next level to get the Conjure Major Elemental, but as you're leveling up, you can go with that just to get that Heaven Elemental on your side. It's really nice just to have for utility's sake. Summon a giant vine capable of dragging creatures towards itself can be decent. This is a bonus action spell too, so that can be useful. I like Swamp myself, or going with like the Arctic. We might just go with Arctic. Minor Elemental's not fantastic. We'd rather just the major one, but Ice Storm's pretty great too. So again, it gives you that ice surface, which is very powerful for a variety of reasons. And now as we get into level 8, we're going to be going with our next feat here. So in terms of spells, Conjure Woodland Being is really great. So this gives you a Wood Woad, which is nice to just have for crowd control purposes. Having an extra target there allows you to focus a little bit more on just pure damage dealing, as sometimes these will take the attacks of enemies, and that's really great. Confusion's nice too. I personally really like this. It's like Fireball for crowd control. Very useful. You can swap out some of your choices here for like Wall of Fire. There's Dominate Beast as well. Pretty much all these ones that we've seen previously we can choose now. And for our next feat, There is a few of these that are quite great that we can go with. We could go with Resilient to give us the Wisdom saving throws. So Resilient Wisdom gives you a +1 to take our Wisdom up to 20. There's a few different great choices here. So Medium Armor Proficiency, Medium Armor Master is kind of nice because we do get Medium Armor, especially useful for just survivability. But I think that Resilient can be pretty nice with Resilient Wisdom, giving us that saving throw proficiency as well as increasing it all the way up to 20. This is if we don't choose the Hag's Hair. The Hag's Hair will take that up to 20 and then use Mirror Loss to take it to 22. That'd be ideal. But if not, this is our backup. You can also go with Ability Improvement and bump up your Dexterity to 17. And then we're going to be going with something later on. But something like that will be good. And we'll get back out of it here just to kind of give you a guideline on what we're doing. So you can use the Woodland. The Woodland Being is actually really nice just for having that extra target to have defend you, kind of. And you do get some nice options for skills there. But Jaheira, come back. As we're going to level up back to back here. So we get our level 5 spell slots at level 9. And then the Circuit of the Land. This is where we can get some really nice utility out of it. So here's the Conjure Elemental. This is great. We want that because it's just great to have that elemental. Kind of similar to the Wood Woad. It's just good to have any type of something that's going to draw aggro away from the enemy. Or away from your healers and your other important classes. So it really comes down to, do we want Wall of Stone with Conjure Elemental, or do we want the Greater Restoration, which reduces Charm, Petrification, Stun, or any curse affecting it? That can be nice because the Druid's kind of like a backup healer. The action economy doesn't always allow for you to do things like that, but we can take something like Mass Cure Wounds, take off Stone Skin. I really like Insect Plague, makes difficult terrain, deals damage, and imposes disadvantage on perception checks. So something like that looks good for our spells there. And I'll just back out of it again here. I don't know why we're doing that, but as we get into things here, as we look at the character sheet, we do have Poison. I guess I have the item on there, but our Medium Armor Proficiency is something we want to focus on. I'm trying to find it here to show it, but Simple Weapons. Yeah, we got Medium Armored there, so what we're going to be focusing on for our final step of this build, you'll see in just one moment, is focusing on just increasing what we get out of our Medium Armor, as survivability is a little bit different here, as we're not going to be in wild shape as much as a Moon Druid. For our final cantrip, doesn't really matter too much what you take there. Planar Bindings case, target an otherworldly creature and attaches consciousness to your own. It will follow and fight for you as an ally. This can be good. It's a concentration, but you're going to be kind of like a summoner. You're going to have your elementals alongside you, but also having something like that can give you a little bit extra freedom to just, like, as a concentration, having an extra player on your side is always good. Gives you more actions. And again, the action economy comes down to just overall damage dealing, so having an extra free action really there is nice. As we get to level 11, this is when we get our level 6 spell slots, and then we get level 6 spells, which can be really nice. So Freedom of Movement we're going to take off. We can take Sunbeam, which is nice. It blinds all creatures in its path. We got Heal. So really go with whatever you need to fill out your build here. Wall of Thorns can be really nice. Create a wall of pliable, twistable thorns surrounded by entangling vines. Hero's Feast can be quite nice to take because it's just gonna, if you take this and have a cleric with it, you can basically give yourself unlimited long rests, which is very nice. Mass Heal, the heal there is quite good to take, but it just depends what you want to remove off of your spell slots. So by this time you're gonna know what you won't be using often, and you can kind of build it out from there. So these will use level 6 spell slots, so I know I did throw a lot of them on there, but again, you can be kind of playing around with that, and you can get potions that will restore your spell slots. So there is some ways to kind of cheese that and get multiple of them. But for our final, just kind of take whatever you need to fill it out. But we do get a lot of spell slots as a druid. It's pretty crazy, especially a land druid. Now for our final feat, this is where things kind of come together. You can take this earlier, but What we're going to go with here is the medium armor master, so it doesn't impose disadvantage with stealth checks. So stealth isn't really the main point of a druid, but you get your armor class gains a +3 instead of a +2 from dexterity modifier, so that can be quite nice. It'd be best if we have our dexterity a little bit higher. You can also get the gloves of dexterity that's going to bump up our dexterity, and then use the constitution necklace to really round off this build. So I'll just go ahead here and throw that on just to give you somewhat of an idea of that. So 135 health is pretty great to have. So we got 135 health, and then you can also use your summons, which you got the choice of a mud mephits, I can't even pronounce that, or an azure. So I like the ice one myself, and you can upcast that as well if you wanted to, but there we go. So we can have the wood woads as well as the ice mephits. That's great just for having the ability to kind of control the battlefield by making sure that the enemy is focusing on your other summons instead of you. And then you can use planar binding to bring in another option there. Or I guess, yeah, I didn't even click the right elemental. So I really like the water myrmidon. I think that's the best in terms of your summons. You can bring in a lot of summons though. Like, that is incredible. The druid as a wild, you can go into your wild shape, which is really nice to use, but I like the ability to have a lot of summons alongside you. Not like in the sense of being like a necromancer, but just having like your different types of elemental options so that you can do your ice attacks, or you can set up your wizards or sorcerer to do their attacks as well. So this bounces well off of a variety of different builds. The medium armor just gives us survivability. We got an armor class of 18, and that's pretty okay. You can get that a little bit higher too. I've seen it. You can get it up to 22. I just didn't min-max the gear here, but then you can go into your wild shape, and you got options. Panther. I personally like the panther or the owl bear, two of the my choices, I guess. But then what's nice about this is when you're in your animal shape, you get your extra health, but then you also have all your summons out too. So this is what makes this build really great. Is turn one is all about the setup, making sure that you can get your squad rolling out, I guess, get all your summons in, make sure there's no one that needs your healing, and then you pop out into your wild form, use that to kind of tank. This is actually quite powerful. A lot of people say the druid's like the worst class in Baldur's Gate 3, and I disagree. I think with the utility that you get out of this, you can do a lot of damage. And as I said, the druid is the tank class, and it has a bunch of summons. So use that knowledge how you will, but this is what I think to be one of the best druid builds in Baldur's Gate 3. I will be focusing on a moon druid build at a future date, so stay tuned for that. But thank you so much for watching. If you found this video useful, please hit the subscribe button below. It really helps my channel out, and I do appreciate it. And I'll see you all in the next video.